Lip syncing for the crown sadly has been a staple of Drag Race finales ever since season 9. In that season, it was implemented more or less last minute, due to the fan response to the lip syncs on that season. In a way, that format made sense. The show needed to remind us that being able to perform is kind of like a staple of drag. Even in this social media era we're living in, where you can make a living without ever leaving your home. However, it was pretty unnecessary in almost all other seasons. Pair that up with the fact that the last lip sync of any season, the top 2 or 3 finalists or the top 4 into the top 3 lip syncs, never matter. They're just padding for the episode's runtime before the production crowns the queen they either had penned down as the winner or the fan outrage made the winner. With every subsequent season, it first proved to be an inconvenience and then later completely unnecessary and even taking away from a queen's win. So I'm here today to argue that lip syncing for the crown needs to go. If you're not able to support me on Patreon but still enjoy what I do here, it would help a lot if you could like, comment, and subscribe. But before we begin, I just want to give a special shout out to my new Patreon supporters this week, XOXO Deluxe, The Only Sean, and Tyler. Thank you all for joining and for helping me out. I want to start with season 9 and talk about that season's lip syncs in order to show just how necessary lip syncing for the crown was in that season. You can skip this part and go to the timestamp you see on the screen now where I talk about season 9's top 4 if you don't want to listen to this part about the season's lip syncs. Season 9 started with a competitive episode without a bottom 2. For the first time in Drag Race's history, there was an episode where there were no low placements and, as a result, no lip sync. That was kind of foreshadowing for what was to come. For me, a good bottom 2 lip sync needs both queens to do well, regardless of the result. So think Tatiana versus Alyssa, Alyssa versus Coco, or Aja versus Nina and Alexis versus Peppermint in this season. I would say that those are the only 2 great lip syncs of the season, because again, both queens tried hard, both did well, and we still did not need to have a double shantay because one clearly did a tad bit better than the other. I would say that Alexis versus Farrah is a possible contender here too, given that Farrah did try in this lip sync, but it was clear that Alexis was going to beat her. That's barely 3 lip syncs prior to the finale lip syncs, of course, on a season that had 10 lip syncs. Obviously, there were other good lip syncing performances in bottom 2s. Aja in her first lip sync, Trinity in her first lip sync, Peppermint in her first lip sync, and Nina in her second lip sync. However, the problem here is that every one of these performances, except for Peppermint's, is overshadowed by the other performer giving up. Kimora and Untucked had already given up. Charlie as well. Valentina did not even bother to lip sync. Then, in similar vein, Nina knew that there was no way she was staying in the competition, so she did not even try in her lip sync against Shay. That leaves us with the season's first lip sync between Jaymes and Kimora, which was fine. Nothing special really, so it's forgettable. And then the lip sync between Cynthia and Farrah was not even necessary because that was when Eureka was taken out of the competition for her injury. Basically, out of the 10 lip syncs before the finale, only 4 carried any significance. Obviously, I'm not counting the top 4 lip sync here because, again, those never matter. If they did, Darienne, Lake, Kennedy, Davenport, and ChiChi DeVayne would have all been in their respective seasons' top 3s. The show originally wanted to do a top 3 finale in season 9, a la season 7 and 8 without Peppermint, where Shay would have most certainly won the season. But even before seeing the reaction to the lack of proper bottom 2 lip syncs, the show knew that that aspect of the season was underwhelming, so they filmed an outcome where they did stick to a top 4 for the finale. And then in the finale, we got another Murder on the Runway lip sync, and then a good lip sync where both queens tried, but it was clear Peppermint did better. The format did its job. It made lip syncing valuable again. And then the show proceeded to ruin it every single next season. Season 10 did not have a single lip sync where a queen did not try. The closest we got to it was for the Kalorie versus Eureka lip sync in episode 2. where Kalorie kind of knew that she was going to get eliminated, but she still did not give up. Cameron Michaels and the Vixen lip-synced 3 episodes in a row each, and not a single time did either of them not give it her 100%. I would say that the Vixen's best lip-sync came in her last episode. Even the lip-sync between Kameron and Eureka that did not deserve a double shantay in Eureka's favor was fine. It was a serviceable lip-sync. This season did not need the lip-sync for the crown. However, it did have it. Season 9 set the standard that these lip-syncs needed to be more than just somebody walking around the stage and opening their mouth. You needed to give us a spectacle, like what Sasha, Peppermint, and Trinity kind of did. The gags and gimmicks need to work with the songs. They couldn't just be gags for the sake of gags, which is what Sasha and Peppermint showed us perfectly. That was all lost on the queens in the finale of season 10 because, just look at them. You knew a gag, a reveal, or 7 of them was coming. It wasn't exciting. Asia's butterfly fiasco is memorable for all the wrong reasons, and in Aquaria's lip sync against Eureka, she allegedly messed up a lot. But the show knew that they couldn't crown Eureka in the end, so they edited out Aquaria's mistakes. And some might say this season had another unfair double shantay. Now, I wouldn't say it's unfair, because if Eureka could get saved for losing a lip sync to Kameron and then also not knowing the words in episode 9, Aquaria should also be saved for slipping a couple of times while being the frontrunner of the season. Tit for tat. In the final 3 lip sync, Kameron said that she did not even try because she did not want to win because of the fan backlash. She did not think that she deserved to win the season. This left us with Eureka pulling the big girl card and throwing herself around the stage, and Aquaria trying her hardest to be the only one that's actually doing a good job. It was a mess all around. Like, you had to be there. This did not need to happen. They could have eliminated Kameron in episode 12. They could have had a top 3 and crowned Aquaria. It would have made sense. It would have been fine. But in a way, it is good that it happened this way. Drag Race did not think about why they were doing what they were doing, and they got the short end of the stick, and they learned from their mistakes. I'm just kidding, it's Drag Race. The spectacle for the sake of a spectacle continued in season 11. I would argue that this season could get away with having a lip sync for the crown. While many queens tried, and we had great lip syncs like Raja versus Mercedes, Aquaria versus Raja, Brooklyn versus Vanjie, and of course, Brooklyn versus Evie, which was a stunt fest, but it made sense for it, given the song and given the stakes. However, the rest of the season's lip syncs were... Nah. Not many people really ever gave up, but the 6-way lip sync was a mess. They should have eliminated at least 3 people there, and Silky versus Nina, don't even get me started on that one. Still, these were nowhere near as disastrous as season 9's bad lip sync performances. The show probably hoped for a Silky versus Evie resolution lip sync in the finale, but Silky chickened out, and instead of earning her redemption then, we had to wait until All-Star 6 to see her get it. This season's lip syncs for the crown were not as messy as season 10's were, but they were also not as good as season 9's. Evie and Brooke were the clear top 2, and it was nice to have one last showdown between the two, which Evie was going to win no matter what, because on one hand she had a story behind her, and on the other hand, Brooke was up for elimination twice previously. Basically, season 11 did not need it either, but it did not take away from the season. If anything, it summarized the season. It showed Evie and Brooke as fighters, Aquaria as not really relying enough on her talents, and Silky as a hypocrite, with Evie beating the clique in the end. Season 12 had everything going against it, and the Zoom lip syncs for the crown are just... it was not good. I mean, this season did do like a mixed format between season 7 and 8's finale, with each queen performing a song, and then obviously there being a lip sync for the crown. Again, the idea that the queens were lip syncing for the crown was nonsensical, and Jaida was winning the season regardless of what happened. Watch my video on why Jaida want to find out why that is. So, again, the format proved to be unnecessary. Season 13 had too many lip syncs. The episode 1 lip syncs are pretty forgettable, and had a couple of questionable decisions. Denali carrying the season's lip syncs with her episode 4 lip sync does not help the season not have 1. Unmemorable and 2. Inconsequential lip syncs. Plus, the division of winners and losers in the first episode just showed us who the show was going to push towards the finale and who was going to be disposed of. Going into pretty much every single episode, you knew that 9 times out of 10, one of the queens from the loser circle was going to get eliminated, and that the queens from the winner circle are going to get favoritism. The lip syncs thus were inconsequential, but unlike on season 9, the lip syncs here were inconsequential not because of the queens, but because of the production's choices. Does that mean that the season needed the lip sync for the crown? Absolutely not. Out of the top 4, Kandy should not have even been there. She was saved from getting eliminated. Gottmik was saved from being in the bottom 2 more times than it should be legal, and Rosé, well, loser circle. There was never a point in the season where it wasn't obvious that Simone was going to win it. You could have stopped watching the season after episode 4 and you wouldn't have missed anything good. Well, except for Eureka's runways and her performance in the roast. Thus, after this season, the show gave up the format on regular seasons and went back to the season 7 and 8 format. Will we ever see the day that we go back to the seasons 1, 2, 3 crowning? Will I ever know satisfaction with this show? Yeah, I doubt it. You thought we were done? Well, no, they now do lip syncing for the crown on All Stars. In a way, obviously every season there we had a lip sync right before the crowning just to pad for the time, but with All Stars 4 there was a change in the way that the fans responded to those lip syncs. That season we had the show's first ever double crowning between Trinity and Monét. Trinity did the best in the competition while Monét was the 3rd best. 4th best if we include Manila. How do I rationalize Monét's win without bringing in the marketability and the race card? I say Monét did the best when it comes to the twists presented in that season out of the top 4. How do some of the fans rationalize her win?
She did better in the final lip sync.
What? Since when did we ever take that into consideration? Since when did the show ever take that into consideration? Since never, but kids will be kids. The same thing goes for the next 2 seasons winners. I found these 2 comments the other day, and I think they best explain the mentality of some of the fans. Firstly, one person says this about the All-Star 6 finale. I just don't see what Raja could have done outside of just having more followers and being more popular. Like, she did everything the best this episode and during the season as well. And then somebody commented under that by saying, if Kylie did the best in the finale, I would understand. Meaning, they would understand her win had she been the best in the finale. So what we're saying is, once we get into the finale, everything we did is completely erased. And you either win by being the best in a lip sync that never mattered, or by having the largest fan base. Fuck doing great all season long. Fuck dominating the competition. Fuck being the hardest worker. Fuck season-long storytelling. The only thing that matters now are the season's last 3 minutes. Now that's the problem with media, art, and its consumers nowadays. What sells is the instant gratification, short-term praise, and progress at face value. I bet you that if you were to binge All Stars 4 to 6 in a day or 2, you would actually see that the results in the final episodes make no sense with what you were told up to that point. Think of it this way. It's kind of like the finale of Game of Thrones. Nothing that happened there made sense with what the show was showing us the past, I don't know how many seasons. I never watched Game of Thrones, so let me give you an analogy that I'm familiar with. It's like watching Scream. And in the last couple of minutes, instead of Sydney coming out on top, she randomly got naked and had Billy kill her in an exploitative, orgasmic sounding death scene. This entire talk of the final lip sync on All Stars brings us to this point of lip syncing for the crown on All Stars 7. So yeah, the showrunners were dumb enough to implement the lip sync for the crown in the finale of All Stars 7, and granted, they couldn't have been 100% sure that Jinx, maybe not one of the strongest lip syncers, was going to do the best before the season. And by the way, this was not a last-minute decision. They did not add this to screw Jinx. But because of the unnecessary implementation of the format, now half of the fandom that has spent half of its life on TikTok thinks that she shouldn't have won because Monét did better in that last lip sync. If Monét had been declared as the winner of that lip sync, she still would have had a worse track record than Jinx. In conclusion, The lip sync for the crown format was a good idea once, tolerable once, and completely unnecessary 4 times. So yes, Drag Race. The lip syncing for the crown format needs to go. I find tournaments fun, so why not have a lip sync tournament? It could be done well given the circumstances. For example, they could bring lip syncing for the crown in a way back as a challenge. For example, the way to advance into the top 3, or into the finale, means surviving the lip sync for the finale tournament. 2 queens lip sync in the first round each. The losers move on to the second round, where the queen that loses that lip sync is just not in the season's finale. She gets eliminated. We only get 3 lip syncs in the episode so that we do not get tired of them. The queens are fighting to stay in the competition, so there are stakes involved. And we end the season seeing every single queen perform at least once. Does this favor the queens that are primarily lip syncers? Yes. But there isn't a single challenge on Drag Race where these sorts of queens have an advantage. The closest thing to those are Rusicals, but that is more of a dancing plus acting challenge. There is a type of a challenge for everybody on Drag Race, so instead of taking away the lip sync for the crown completely, let's maybe give it less importance and make it a challenge. I also asked my supporters on Patreon what they thought of the format. Here's what they had to say. First, Max says this. I think the lip sync for the crown should be dropped. First of all, the show is so lip sync heavy already. It's too much. Both season 13 and season 14 had entire episodes dedicated to just lip syncs, even before the finale, and the thing is, they're not even memorable. Lip syncs just had more weight and meaning prior to season 10. The lip sync for the crown of season 9 was like a lightning in a bottle, a phenomenon that's impossible to recreate. Pep's and Sasha's reveals were effective because they were not only very smart and inventive, but they made sense with the song. Their reveals were suited to the songs and not just stunts. But if they knew what was good for them, they should have dropped it right after that. They should have known that the chances of it being topped were extremely low. The thing is, the producers still want to control the finale. They still wanted to play out how they envision it. One thing that made the finale of season 9 so great was that there were actual stakes there. The queens with the most wins were eliminated, and it made sense with the format. That got completely lost when they saved Aquaria the following year, which was kinda justified since Eureka got saved too earlier, but also was the first sign of this format being faulty and easy to manipulate. But there was a theater of people that witnessed it and called bullshit. But also, the producers are very bad at manipulating the format. We all know that the wheel is manipulated with a motor, so the queen to choose is not random. All-Star 7, they did not even let the first queen choose anymore, so they could have the pairing of their choosing. And still, they completely messed up with the song choices, which would have been the easiest thing to do, but they still put the outcome they wanted at risk by not paying attention to the wheelhouses of the queens. And I have the feeling that every queen that won season 10 would have won the season anyway. The queen who was most likely to win won every time. They didn't win because they did the best in the SmackDown. They probably won because they were the best choice. And also because they were fan favorites. In conclusion, the concept worked once, but it gets more and more manipulated in a very clumsy way, and they still can't get the outcome they want sometimes. The producers need to learn that they can't have it both ways, and should pick the winner of the season based on the season. Also, a top 3 is more impactful, but I get that this is becoming more and more difficult to pull off when you want to have a diverse finale that makes most watchers feel represented in some way. Next, Lady Catrice wrote, I think it has definitely outlived its appeal and should be replaced with something like season 7, 8, or 14's format, where the queens can do an individual performance to kind of prove why they got to the finale. I'd even be for doing a ball like season 13's first finale portion. Either way, the lip sync format for the finale has given us some of the best and worst moments from Drag Race. But I think the bad and the mediocre outweigh the good. If there is another situation like season 9 where the lip syncs during the season are underwhelming or not impactful on the season, then I could see it being a good format to use, but otherwise it should be retired. We already get enough lip syncs during the season anyways, considering how long the last 2 seasons have been, so having them during the finale just seems like overkill now. KP also joined in on the fun and said, personally, I think that lip syncing is more important in drag, and it should be highlighted more in Drag Race because there have been seasons where queens never lip sync or only lip sync in the finale because they never landed at the bottom 2. Bianca Del Rio, Alaska in season 5, Jaymes formerly known as Tyra, etc. However, most queens don't lip sync for their life outside of Drag Race, or, Lip Sync for the Crown. I think that season 14 was probably the best iteration I've seen where queens get to dictate a number from props to choreo to song choice. So I would love to see that more in any capacity because it really does show off the queen's point of view and drag style more so than a Lip Sync for Your Life or Lip Sync for the Crown could ever do. But I think the tournament style lip syncs are fun too. Season 14 gave us a lot of good moments and it wasn't so heavily produced like All-Star 7 where it disappointed a lot of fans because of editing choices. But it did have real stakes and storylines to play off of, unlike Season 13's lip sync tournament. This is becoming a Season 14 praise comment, but I really did enjoy those aspects of that season and I think others did as well. All in all, I think that lip syncing for the Crown can be edited poorly and may make season-long storylines sour, aka Jinxes in All-Star 7 because everyone was rooting for her until that final lip sync against Monét. If the format was different, I don't think All-Star 7 would end on a weird note like it did, cementing it as one of the best seasons ever. They should stick with finales that don't end with lip syncs for the Crown, but include some lip sync tournaments in the season somewhere, like in All-Star 6 and Season 14. DL and Crimson also shared their thoughts on the subject. I think the first time it was very good to switch things up and give all the finalists a fighting chance, like Peppermint in Season 9. But with every next season, it got worse and worse. The lip sync songs were just questionable, queens would just rely on reveals and stunts, and they just wouldn't fight, because the producers would crown whoever they want. This format is easy for producers to meddle. Giving a queen a song they know she would do well, shady editing, putting a queen against a queen they know would do better or worse. I think that with the finale of All-Star 7 the format will probably change, and I would love for the new format to be something along the lines of the Season 14 finale, because usually almost everything is left in the queen's hands. And lastly, Velvet Condoms is going to finish us off, pun intended, by saying this. I think that the lip sync for the Crown format has served its purpose. It did address the horrendous lip syncs of Season 9. Additionally, it did address the problem that previous finales had more filler than all of the butts in Miami combined. Oh my god! That said, I do think there are problems with the format. First, if we're going to have at least 2 challenges per season where the queens have to write a terrible verse that no one will ever listen to after that episode, I think that having a lip sync for the Crown and that in the same season is excessive. Maybe they should cut those verse writing challenges entirely. Also, lip sync for the Crown only works when there are actual stakes. In Season 9, thanks to the track records, the entire winner was settled in the Shay vs Sasha lip sync, which was before the final 2, as opposed to Season 11 where the only 2 serious contenders for the crown had a strong battle at the end. It also played a role in the trend of RuPaul's reveal race. I think a better format might be to do something similar to the Season 12 finale, where each finalist gets a chance to build a custom pre-made routine. It doesn't even need to be a lip syncing. It should just have an element of performance to give the finalists a chance to show why they should win. And that's it. That's the video. What do you guys think of the Lip Sync for the Crown format? Do you think it's good or has it overstayed its welcome? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and thank you for watching.